IELTS Essay, Travel and Transport. In many countries, small shops and town centers are going out of business because people tend to drive to the large out-of-town stores. This results in an increase in car use, and it also means that people without cars have limited access to out-of-town stores. Do you think the advantages of such development outweigh its disadvantages? Essay outline. Ideas for body paragraph 1. The advantages of out-of-town shopping centers are very limited. Slightly cheaper prices, but huge new developments contribute to the urban sprawl of cities. This reduces investment in city centers, which are much more than just places for shopping, e.g. Vienna regularly has art exhibitions in the city center. Ideas for body paragraph 2. For example, those without transport are disenfranchised. Traffic on the roads. Also, main point. Some might argue they create jobs. But really it is probably just shifting employment from one area to the other. IELTS Essay, Travel and Transport. In recent decades, consumer shopping habits have shifted dramatically, with many individuals increasingly preferring to drive to large, out-of-town shopping complexes rather than frequenting local town centers and small, independent shops. This trend has sparked considerable debate regarding its overall impact on communities and the environment. While some may argue that such developments offer consumers greater convenience and lower prices, I strongly believe that the disadvantages significantly outweigh the advantages. To begin with, the economic and cultural role of town centers extends far beyond simple commerce. Although suburban retail parks may provide goods at marginally cheaper prices, their emergence often accelerates urban sprawl, leading to the neglect and decline of city centers. Local businesses, which once thrived as integral parts of community life, struggle to compete with large retailers that enjoy economies of scale. Consequently, historic town centers lose not only their economic vitality, but also their cultural vibrancy. For instance, in Vienna, the city center regularly hosts art exhibitions, open-air performances, and seasonal markets that attract both residents and tourists. These activities transform the urban space into a cultural hub rather than merely a commercial one. The decline of such areas, therefore, represents a loss not only in economic diversity, but also in cultural enrichment and community cohesion. Moreover, the reliance on out-of-town shopping centers imposes considerable social inequality. Those without access to private vehicles, such as the elderly, low-income groups, or young people, often find themselves excluded from these distant retail spaces. Public transport may not always extend to suburban shopping zones, leaving non-drivers disenfranchised and unable to enjoy the same consumer choices as others. This lack of accessibility not only limits shopping opportunities, but also deepens the social divide, reinforcing a sense of marginalization among vulnerable groups. A healthy town center, in contrast, ensures inclusivity by being accessible to all residents, regardless of their means of transportation. Another significant disadvantage lies in the environmental and infrastructural consequences of increased car dependency. As more consumers rely on private vehicles to reach out-of-town shopping complexes, traffic congestion inevitably worsens. This exacerbates air pollution, contributes to greenhouse gas emissions, and places immense strain on road infrastructure. In the long term, the environmental cost of such development outweighs the perceived benefit of marginally cheaper consumer goods. Governments are then forced to allocate more resources to expanding and maintaining road networks, further diverting funds that could otherwise support sustainable urban planning or investment in public transport systems. Some proponents of out-of-town retail parks contend that they create new employment opportunities, often on a large scale. While this claim may hold some truth superficially, the reality is far less clear-cut. In many cases, these jobs are not genuinely new, but are simply displaced from smaller, independent shops that close down as they cannot compete with large-scale retailers. Thus, the employment benefit is largely illusory, representing a geographical redistribution of jobs rather than a genuine net increase. Furthermore, the quality of employment in large retail chains often tends. In conclusion, Although out-of-town shopping centers may appear attractive due to slightly lower prices and the superficial promise of new jobs, their disadvantages far outweigh any potential benefits. They erode the cultural and economic significance of town centers, marginalize individuals without access to private vehicles, exacerbate environmental problems through increased car use, and offer little in terms of genuine employment growth. A more sustainable and equitable approach would be to invest in revitalizing town centers, supporting local businesses, and ensuring that urban spaces remain both accessible and culturally vibrant. Only by doing so can communities maintain their identity and promote inclusive development.